Hi, I'm Bradley Hill. This is my spinal cord injury story. So I have a C4 incomplete spinal cord injury. I got this May 2012. I was working in London as a personal trainer. I woke up one morning with a pain in my back. 7 days later, I was dead on the operating table. I'd gained an epidural abscess, what had moved onto the spinal cord. So the infection was travelling up the spinal cord from the lumbar region, the bottom. So the pain I had in that 7 days was horrific. I was crying my eyes out with pain. Luckily my girlfriend was down from Newcastle that weekend. She was able to look after me for 2-3 days. Without her, God knows what would have happened. I was taking handfuls and handfuls of painkillers to just try and get out of that pain. So eventually, the Monday morning, a year ago today that I make this video, she called an ambulance as my right leg went to pins and needles, went completely numb. I said to her, I'd been screaming for about 2 days then. I said, this is something really wrong. Called an ambulance, it wouldn't come out, not urgent enough. 5 hours later, it wouldn't come out again. Another 5 hours the morning of the Monday, it eventually came out. A couple of hours later, MRI, the dye into my system, MRI. They found an abscess on the lower spinal cord. Went straight into surgery, emergency surgery. Everything seemed alright after that. My parents came down from Newcastle, everything was fine. I was actually recovering, I was quite strong. They thought they'd caught it, there was no damage, or they didn't think anyway, although they had induced me a bit, so that was the very limited movement. So everyone was ready to sort of, go home, everything was looking good. Suddenly I took a bad turn, got a really bad chest infection. Couldn't hardly breathe, and it got bad. There was an intensive care. My parents were told to say goodbye to me. I was that ill every time. Every time they left me, say goodbye, this could be the last time you see him. Everyone, went into shock. I was really fit and healthy, or I thought I was at the time before, so that's why it was such a shock to everyone. So it got really bad, to the point where the surgeons actually said, we don't think we can save him, we're just going to have to, it's too far gone, we're going to have to let him go just naturally. Eventually the blood pressure dropped, my heart will stop, and the septicemia was too much. But 2 AM on a Monday morning, Sunday night, Monday morning, I guess my saviour, I looked at him as a guardian angel. He was called in, he'd seen me through the week, a young lad. He said, they rang him, he said, no, I'll try the operation, I'll do it, I'll come in. So 3 AM he got to the hospital, prepped, and then he went into about 7 to 9 hours of surgery. And he saved my life. So that was the purpose of the operation, to save my life. They weren't worried about saving my limbs. The infection at this point travelled all the way up the spine, right up to C4, it was inches off my brain. So they wanted to bring me around after the operation to see if I was paralysed, what they thought I was. They after the operation they came around, said to me, you are paralysed, you will never move from your neck down. We have a psychologist, everything here will help you. The life of tetraplegics is, it's a high quality life now, we will do everything to support you. And a lot of people ask me, how did that feel? You just woke up and you've been slapped with that adversity, how did it feel? And obviously why me, everything goes through your head, how, what just happened, what the hell just happened? everything that goes through your head, but you've got a decision to make there and then. Do you be the victim or do you fight it? And I guess looking back, I have every skill set to make that decision, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I immediately went on the attack. I told all the consultants, some of the top people in the country, in fact Europe, that they're wrong. They're just wrong, and I believed that in my own head, and that's how what kept me going, what pulled me through. I was saying, no, the operation's fine. It's just the swelling that's keeping I couldn't move. I was paralyzed. It's just that's keeping it down. So eventually, when everyone came round to see me, the tears were horrific. And it's hard to stay strong. It's hard to not fall into that victim role. You've got to really stay strong, and I believed from that I'd walk out that hospital. Well, not that hospital, but the spinal unit that I would be in. I promised myself I'd walk out that spinal unit. I had a clear goal that I don't care how I did it, I was going to do it, and I wasn't going to leave there until I did it. So, as time moved on, people were like, oh well, looking back, the skill set I had, through the years playing rugby, professional rugby, the weight training, all the sport and fitness gives you so much more than just lifting a weight or playing sport. It gives you the skill set to never say die. And all through my rugby career, it was always you fight till the end, and you never give up, and you never take no for an answer. And that was how I went on. I just refused to accept someone telling me my fate. I was going to decide my own fate. So anyway, after the operation, about a week or so in intensive care, still after the operation, I was really sick still. There was a chance it could still have come back like it did after the first operation. I eventually got out of intensive care after about a week, got into high dependency. At this point, I just gained some light movement in my left hand, a tiny flicker of one of my left toes, nothing in the right, absolutely nothing. So from that, to me, that was hard to take, because it was a sign that something's not right. Your right's not moving, your left's moving a tiny bit. And it wasn't moving, it was the fact that there was a tiny little squeeze on my hand, on my whoever was holding my hand. So it was difficult to still believe, stay true to the cause, that something is just going to come around. And I remember lying in high dependency. Obviously my lungs had collapsed, everything like that. I couldn't breathe. I was on ventilators, tube for food down my throat. And I got given the respiratory physios, came in, said, you'd blow into this device, it helps your lung strength. And after a couple of days, I thought I was quite good at it. I went up to about 500, I was getting like 50 to 100, and I thought, oh, well, it's probably a decent score. I'm doing all right, and one of my friends came in and he said, oh, what's that? And I said, it's to help your breathing. And I said, I'll have a go. And I remember him doing it, and he hardly breathed into it, and it went straight up to the top. And it hit me there, and it was like, you can't even breathe. And you relying on a mask to breathe, and it was difficult. And I knew it was a real fight from then on, and there was no someone's going to help you, it was you. So I eventually got out of that, transferred to Middlesbrough, a spinal unit, back up towards my parents. Got up to the gym after a week in bed with a bed sore, got up there, you've got to spend time in a wheelchair, for your blood pressure, spending half an hour in a wheelchair after you've been through all that surgery, paralysed, and your neck staying upright, it feels like, 1,000 kilograms on your head weighs 1,000 kilograms. So difficult. Being in that, it's one of the hardest things I've ever done, I think. Sitting, I wasn't sitting, but I was propped up. The strain on your body, obviously, I don't know if it was trying to wake up or whatever it was just awful. And I had to get up to 4 hours in the chair before you're allowed into the gym. And that was one of the hardest things I've ever done, and the pain, the muscle mass had dropped off. I hadn't moved, and this I think the right shoulder was just dislocating, pretty much dislocating, because of all the rugby injuries. I had the muscle mass to stay in there. The pain was that horrific. Everything was a battle, right? A real battle. So I got up to the gym and the rehab. These rehab things are, you're told that it's amazing rehab facilities that do wonders, and we got there, and to tell you the truth, it was a poor facility. There's just no funding for it, and the gym was old. I don't think I've ever seen some equipment that old. So there and then, I knew there wasn't any, it was down to me. There wasn't any great hope. There wasn't any, magic cure. It was pure hard work and pure belief more than anything, rather than hard work. So eventually I got to the point where the physio sit you up. So you sat up. At this point I had some movement in my arms, not much, no coordination. It was just like, you were drunk or something. And they sit you on the end of the bed and they will hold you up, and they go, right, hold yourself up, so like you sat on the end of a bed. And you go, oh, they're worse, it's fine. Then you're suddenly just over. And the first few stages are the hardest, because you realise how you've got nothing, you've got no strength, you've got no coordination, you've got nothing, you don't know if it's ever going to come back. But there's one thing you've got to do, and it's believe it is going to come back. And I learned a lesson in January. By this point I was a bit recovering, jumping forward a bit, I was recovering. And I thought, oh, I'll just give it time, I won't do anything, I'll just relax, it'll come back. And I actually went backwards. I did that for about 3 weeks, 4 weeks relaxed, and I went backwards. I was walking worse, I was a lot weaker. And that was an important lesson I learned, that unless you're really working at it, you're going to go backwards. So it's non-stop. Anyway, going back to Middlesbrough, the spinal unit, weeks and weeks and months, you get a lot of time to lie there and think. I was still on major antibiotics at this time. I was feeling terrible. You look at all the pills you're given. I suddenly started asking the doctors, what are these? And handfuls of antidepressants, this and that. And I just made a decision at that point, this is me, this is my battle, and I don't need these pills. I refused to take the antidepressants, I refused to take some other things. And I just wanted total control over everything. I wanted to be in control. I had a lot of time to think. Your physio is only an hour a day, not even that, in fact, 45 minutes a day some days. That's 5 days a week. So I just sat there thinking, how am I going to get out of here? Because you learn actually doing everyday tasks is the best way to get better. There is, your physio, you do your exercises, but you don't see much from it, because failure and learning and falling is the best possible thing you can do. It can be dangerous, but to me that was what I knew I had to do. So anytime I was able to move around, obviously at this point I had no feeling from here down. So it came down to T4, the feeling, you've got doctors sticking pricks in you, the pins in you, and the testing your feeling and sensation, and you can't feel anything, you can't feel temperature. It's hard to take encouragement from that. You can't feel anything, and then tell yourself so everything's alright. It's difficult, but there's no other choice. So as soon as I was able to do things for myself, feed yourself, even though it's a struggle, it's horrible, it takes hours, it takes loads out of you. Even stuff like pouring your own water, like you couldn't lift a jug, no chance the amount of waters I tipped over, but nurses said, oh, come get me now. You've got to do it yourself. Eventually I started learning that failure, every failure is one step closer, and I knew that to anything in life, one more step of failure is closer to a step of success. So eventually I set myself a goal. My girlfriend at the time's birthday was July, I should know the date, but it was the 4th, I think, or 31st, one of the two. And I set myself a date. I'd walk down to a drive on that date for her birthday. And that was in my head. I think it was about a month, 2 months away, and I was at this point, I couldn't put any weight through my legs, and there was nothing, there was slight movements, but I believed that, and every day I woke up, I knew I was waking up anxious, thinking, have I got enough time in this day to take a step closer to that goal? And, that was my goal. So eventually I started getting stronger, and the little bits of belief started coming. The physios pick you up, hold your joints, and basically manipulate you into standing. Even though this takes everything out of you, the feeling of it is pretty special. And once you start believing, and sometimes I was always a believer in believing in more than I could do, and that's the way I do it. But sometimes you need that external show you can, and then a couple of weeks later I got onto, right, I think I was walking down the bars at this point with the physio's help, and they have these walking machines where they grab your legs and help you walk basically, and even though you're terrible at it, suddenly there's that belief there, well, if I've got some sort of strength, there's more coming back. So once that belief is reinstalled, and it's constant goal setting and this and that, and every day I'd wake up saying I'm going to do this, and then there would be days you go backwards, and that's the hard part, but you keep going forwards and forwards, and eventually it all comes around. So I got onto a Zimmer frame. I could only go about 10 meters, but that was a huge step, because I knew if I was on a Zimmer frame I wasn't as far away from crutches. Eventually, so it was approaching this July, I think it was July the 31st date. No, it was June the 26th, I think. Anyway, maybe not be right. Anyway, that date meant so much to me, and I actually made it. I actually got out of hospital on a weekend leave after, I had stair tests to pass, getting into a bath test, everything, and I crammed that into 1 week, and there was so much belief. I had to do it. If I had missed that, I'd failed in my own head, and so much came back in that week, and I put that down to real belief and dedication to that goal. So anyway, got out for the weekend, and that weekend out was so difficult. You're used to walking on a flat surface with slippers, you can basically slide along. Suddenly you're on concrete with trainers, there's grip, there's paving stones, there's steps. Getting over a step, you don't realise how hard it is. That weekend at home meant it was so difficult. I felt, I didn't fall down the stairs, but I pretty much collapsed on the stairs a couple of times, and I knew that was the way forward, that real struggle. Because without that real struggle, you're never going to improve. It's like anything with the weight training, with sports, unless you really test yourself, you're never going to get anywhere. I knew that, and the next goal was get out of that hospital, and I spoke to the consultant, and I said, I want to go. He said, well, you're not ready to go. I said, well, I want to go. I said, you can send whatever nurse around to check on me, and I'm alright, I think. And eventually they agreed to keep me in another week or two, and then I was released. And that's when the real hard work started, because it was real difficult. It was really difficult. You suddenly, that hospital, you've got a weird sort of community in hospital. You've got your routine, you've got your, people coming around, your breakfast, you're seeing people, you've got a real nice kind of life. And I see when people come out of hospital, it's really difficult, because suddenly you're sat on your own, or you've got no one really looking after you, and there's nothing to do, you can't do anything. I see where a lot of people come out of these hospitals and want to go back in. and it was really difficult to adjust. I mean, everything I love doing is health and fitness and moving and exercise, and that was gone. I haven't got too many hobbies apart from that. So then there, I knew I had to get back into some sort of routine. The gym, obviously I had no health at this point, antibiotics for 6 months, and I was just wiped out. I was tired, I couldn't do anything. The spinal cord injury makes you tired. Anything you do is there's such a hit on the central nervous system, that you're looking at 3-5 days to recover. You didn't have a life, but I knew I had to regain something, and that was getting into some sort of routine. So after a few weeks I got myself to a gym, started. That was for the sanity. I knew it wasn't to sort of, let's go, let's train. It was the sanity, being back in that thing. That was me living again. Seeing my friend, going to the gym with my friend Blaise, and he was helping me. He'd been there all the way through. He took time off work. He was by my bedside the whole way through. And just spending time with him at the gym, like old times, meant so much, because I knew that was the step to recovery. And when I walked in that gym, I was on crutches, and I shouldn't have been there. No way should I have been. It was dangerous to be there. And I was picking up the 2 kilogram dumbbells. I couldn't even pick them up. I couldn't bend down to pick anything up. He had to give me stuff. But that to me was my healing. To be in that environment that I'd lived in that gym. Every day. I'd spent an hour every day in that gym for God, how many, 6-7 years. And that was kind of a home away from home for me. It was the way to improve. It was the way to back to normal life. And then a few things happened in that gym. People come up to you, seeing I'd been in London for a year or two at this point, and I hadn't been back for 2 years, and people come over and say, "Oh, I heard what happened to you," or "What happened?" And some people said some really nice things, and a few things I remember. And speaking to one guy, and he just said, "I got into all this, you're my inspiration and this and that." And he said, "Don't worry, keep the faith. Keep the faith and you'll get through." And it just struck a bell. Keep the faith and keep believing, and little things like that. And people coming up to you saying, "Oh, you inspired me to do this and that." And it sounds kind of big-headed, but that meant so much to me. I mean, I love helping people, and that's my job, helping people. And I knew I had to get back. I knew I had a tool, a vehicle to change people's lives, on a huge scale. If I could do this, I could change thousands of, instead of 1 or 2 people's lives, I could change thousands of people's lives. And that's when the real sort of dedication to the cause came in. I knew if I could show people within a year what was possible, from dying, from being paralyzed for 6 months. I had a time scale of 6 months, well, not even 6 months, 5 months to 4 months to get my life back, claim back from nothing. I mean, this took everything from me. It took every penny I'd ever saved. It took my business. It took my girlfriend. I split up with her. I lost, what was at the time the most important thing of my life. I lost that. Everything was gone. Nothing. I had nothing. I had my family, obviously, and that was the only thing I had, the only thing you needed. But so it was difficult to come back and start to build a new life, build a new business, build everything from nothing. But what I realized is although I was kind of, you can call me disabled, but I was enabled. I had this huge strength, massive experience, and you start. There's stupid things in life that people worry about, stupid things, and you don't realize how stupid they are until you really go back and look at them. And even though people worry about stupid, what dress you're gonna wear, what car you're gonna drive, where are you gonna go, are you gonna get a table at a nightclub on a Saturday night? Stupid things. And you don't realise how important life is and how valuable life is until you lose someone. You know, the old cliche of you don't know what it's got till it's gone. It's huge, but it's so, you know, until you really face adversity, no one will ever understand that. No one will. But, you know, I now do, and everything I do now, every day I wake up, it's have I got enough hours in the day to do what I want to do? How do I take a step closer? And doing those things with nothing, you know, with no money to be able to, you know, say build a, like simple things. It's a struggle, constant struggle. You've just got to get up and do it. And I learned that, and I knew I had to get back to London. I was with my parents, and it was difficult being there. I mean, everyone was at work. My friends were at work. I didn't, you know, wake up, nothing to do. I knew I had to get back to London and, you know, get some sort of living going. So when I moved back, I was really, looking back, I don't know how I actually did it. I could still hardly walk. I was on sticks at this point. And I just knew some sort of normality would do me good. Even I knew standing on a tube, you know, the balance and stuff would do me good. I knew walking up the stairs would do me good. So I got back to London, and it was difficult. And as I said, January, that's when I took the time off. I thought I'll just let myself get better. I went backwards, and I knew it was going to be a real battle from then. But I've done it. You know, I worked so hard. I, you know, lived for it. I studied. I knew I couldn't, the training and the nutrition, and I knew I couldn't just do what I knew, you know, lifting weights and running fast and would get you in shape. I knew everything was gone that I'd done in the past. I had to learn a new way. Studied a huge amount. Came up with, you know, some real smart stuff. You know, stuff that, well, I'm sure you'll see has got me in the best shape of my life, the best mental shape of my life. And now that's what I do. I offer the coaching and helping and training to people that have really struggled and people that think there's no way out. And I know what it feels like. You know, there isn't any way out, but then suddenly one switch and you flip that, and one thing leads to another, and another door opens another, and it's all goes from there. So this is where I'm at now anyway, and please share my story with anyone you think it might help. I am contactable through the website, through Facebook, through Twitter. You know, it's easy to get hold of me. I do like to interact with as many people as possible. So this is where I am now, and this is what is possible in a year. Anyway, thank you very much.